more polio cases in the Philippines, bringing the total number of polio cases to 16 since the outbreak was declared in September 2019. The threat of the Philippines' Taal volcano unleashing a potentially catastrophic eruption remains high. The authorities warned Thursday, saying it was showing dangerous signs despite a lull in spewing ash. Scores of earthquakes rattle the region daily and large fissures are opening up in the ground, which means the magma that would fuel a major eruption is still flowing beneath. Authorities are struggling to keep evacuees, some 50,000 of whom fled to shelters after Taal burst to life Sunday, away from the danger zone around the volcano. People are trying to get back to homes they left in a hurry to get a change of clothes, feed livestock and pets, and check on properties damaged by the fissures or covered with a thick layer of ash.
Hindi ang hiling namin kung kami matutulungan na maitayo man lamang ang amin ito, ang aming pamamahay. Baka naman kung sakaling pagka tumigil ang kuwan ng bulkan, makauwi pa rin kami dito. Gawa wala naman ho kami pupuntahan.
Pagpunta ko sa ngayon, bagsak na ang bahay ko, ang kusina at saka tiris na ray.
Ang naman siya.
Ay, naramdam ko. Ay, ako mga yak-yak nga. Sabi ko ba, wala na tayong babalikan bahay din. Saan tayo titira ngayon? Ay, puro, dilubyo na nangyari sa ating barangay.
Maria Antonia Bornas, a scientist from the Philippines Seismology Agency, told reporters a long lull could be just a break from volcanic activity. She said the danger remains. The short-lived eruption brought out dark gray ash plumes 500 meters to 800 meters high. FIVAC's director Renato Solidum earlier explained that the weaker eruption is being based on the height of the plume coming out from the crater. Meanwhile, Bornas confirmed that Taal's main crater lake has already dried up. She explained the magma coming out since January 12 has vaporized the water.
Mga 6:17 at 6:21 ng umaga ay nagkaroon po tayo ng mga short-lived na maliliit na explosions or expulsions. Pagsaboy ng maitim na usok na maraming aso dito po sa bunganga ng bulkan na tumulak po ng umabot ng 800 meters ang tayo. At generally po ngayon medyo low level or weak ang activity sa main crater. Nakapagtala ng 566 na volcanic earthquakes mula pa nung nag-umpisa ang pagputok ng bulkan hanggang sa kaninang umaga. At ang 172 lindol ay naramdaman sa LSD 1 to 5 at may lakas ng magnitudes 1.2 to 4.1. Ito pong mga seismic activities na ito, yung mga pagtindol, yung naulat po na pagpitak ng lupa kahapon, isang araw pa, at ang pag-atras ng tubig ng lawa, Pacific River, ay ini-interpret po natin ng malawakang uplift ng bulkang Taal. At ito po ay nagbuhudyat na mayroon pang tumutulak na magma sa ilalim ng bulkan. Mayroon pa rin po tayo nababad dyan panganib, maaaring maging malakas na pagputok ng bulkan. Kaya po sa kasalukuyan ay nakatalaga pa ang alert level 4.
Taal's last eruption was in 1977, but it has a long history of activity. In 1965, an eruption at the volcano, which is a popular tourist attraction, set in a picturesque lake, killed some 200 people. The country's most powerful explosion in recent years was the 1991 eruption of Mount Pinatubo, about 100 kilometers northwest of Manila, which killed more than 800 people. Meanwhile, the Philippine National Police or PNP has set up checkpoints in areas within the 14-kilometer danger zone of the Taal volcano. the Department of the Interior and Local Government or DILG said Thursday. Under Secretary Jonathan Malaya, the DILG spokesperson said local government units may allow access to some high-risk areas on a case-to-case basis, but stressed that this must be coordinated with disaster officials. He, however, reiterated that the Taal volcano island located in the middle of Taal Lake is strictly off limits. This came after some residents attempted to enter the island to retrieve belongings and animals such as horses, cows, and pigs. On Monday, the DILG issued an order for mandatory evacuation in 199 barangays in 15 municipalities and cities in Batangas and Cavite, which have been identified as susceptible to ballistic projectiles, base surges, and volcanic tsunami as a result of the eruption of the Taal volcano. Among the LGUs with barangays within the 14-kilometer danger zone are Agoncillo, Alitagtag, Balete, Cuenca, Laurel, Lemery, Lipas Seri, Malvar, Mataas na Kahoy, San Nicolas, Santa Teresita, Taal, Talisay, and Tanawan City, all in Batangas, and Tagaytay City in Cavite.
Technically, it's mandatory evacuation. Kaya lang umaabot tayo sa punto ng forced evacuation, kasi kailangan na talaga maialis kung may sino pa yung mga taong nananatili doon sa loob ng 14-kilometer danger zone. We're still at alert level 4, so ibig sabihin, imminent violent hazardous eruption that can happen anytime, within hours or days. Kapag naabutan ng pagputok ng bulkan, na may tao pa doon sa 14-kilometer danger zone, they're as good as dead. Kaya hindi natin kasi magagaranti na marirescue natin sila kasi sa bilis ng pagragasa ng base surge na yan, hindi natin sila maaabutan. Ang ating supplies po ng relief ay sapat pa rin at ito po ay sinusuporta. Itong supply na to ay suportado pa rin ng supply ng probinsya at saka ng Regional Disaster Council pati ang National Disaster Council. So i-replenish po natin yan, hindi po natin mapapaabutin sa yugto ng kakulangan.
The number of families affected by the eruption of the Taal volcano in Batangas rose to 17,555. The National Disaster Risk and Management Council, or the NDR-RMC, reported on Friday. In its 6 a.m. update, the NDR-RMC said this is equivalent to 77,438 persons. Based on the NDR-RMC report, all the affected families came from Batangas, Cavite, and Laguna. Of this number, 15,047 families, or 66,262 persons, are temporarily staying in 283 evacuation centers. As of this posting, the Department of Social Welfare and Development and Department of Health has so far provided 11,282,380 peso worth of assistance to the affected families. In other news, the International Criminal Court, or the ICC, has no authority to continue its preliminary examination on President Rodrigo Duterte's anti-narcotics campaign. After lawyer Jude Sabio dropped the communication he filed before the International Tribunal, Malacanang insisted Thursday. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo made the remarks following reports that the ICC said it could not ignore outright the communication filed by Sabio against Duterte's crackdown on illegal drugs. Panelo said the palace, while it could not prevent the ICC from its plan to proceed with its initial review of the current administration's drug war, maintains its stance that the international body has no jurisdiction over Duterte and the Philippines.
Di mo naman mapigilan sila, but the fact remains is that it has no jurisdiction whatsoever over the president and, for that matter, this country. We have repeatedly said that the very source of its authority never gave birth. Why? Because we have to follow certain processes in giving teeth or enforceability to a particular law. it has to be published in a newspaper of general circulation or on the official gazette. And the Rome Statute was never published in either of the two mentioned processes.
The Philippines officially withdrew its membership from the ICC on March 17, 2019, or exactly a year after it revoked the Rome Statute, a treaty that created the International Court on November 1, 2011. Manila cut ties with the ICC after prosecutor Fatou Bensouda in February 2018 pushed through with the preliminary examination of Sabio's communication. Sabio's communication accused Duterte of perpetrating crimes against humanity for thousands of alleged extrajudicial killings of drug suspects since the anti-narcotics drive was launched on July 1, 2016 until March 31, 2017. In its report on the 2019 preliminary examination activities, the ICC sought the conclusion of its initial assessment of the drug war in the Philippines to determine whether there is a need to conduct a full-blown investigation into the campaign against a rampant narcotics trade in the Philippines.
If you notice, the president doesn't mind all of this. Pinapabayaan niya lang yung naninira sa kanya, di ba? Wala naman siyang dinidemanda. You know, as I said in my statement, lies can be sustained only for some time. Once it haunts the peddler, then those lies melt in the heat of truth. Yan ang nangyayari. Kahit ano, yun naman ang ni Presidente, lahat ng mga kasinungalingan nyo lumalabas eventually. Hindi totoo.
Manila or Quezon City is a popular destination, but oftentimes the hustle and bustle of the city can be more stressful on your vacation. So when you feel the need to reconnect to nature or relax again, there's a beautiful oasis just outside of the city called the Garden at Ciudad de Victoria. That you can see here include hydrangea, snapdragon, and stargazers. They're truly beautiful. The gardens at Ciudad de Victoria are so peaceful, tranquil, and beautiful that it's become a haven for young couples and a very popular venue for engagement photos. The next time you want an escape from the big city, the garden at Ciudad de Victoria is a wonderful place to visit.
Welcome back. China's President Xi Jinping arrives in Myanmar this week to nail down multi-billion-dollar infrastructure deals in the country, abandoned by many in the West, appalled at the genocide of the Rohingya Muslims on leader Aung San Suu Kyi's watch. Xi's 2-day visit, his first as president, will seek to cement Beijing's position as Myanmar's largest investor and strategic partner. The much-trumpeted China-Myanmar Economic Corridor, or CMEC, aims to connect the Middle Kingdom to the Indian Ocean, a key route in the Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative that envisions Chinese infrastructure and influence spanning the globe. In addition to offering tens of billions of dollars in investment, China shields its neighbor at the United Nations, where pressure is mounting for accountability over the Rohingya crisis. Yet, the relationship between the countries is tangled. Ethnic conflict sizzling in the border zones and the impact of dams, pipelines, and transport links risk awakening hostility over Chinese intentions. For China, it is time to get things back on track, the historian Thant Mintyu wrote in his latest book. Meanwhile, the total deployment ban of Filipino workers in Kuwait stays unless its government honors a pact signed to guarantee their protection, Malacanang said on Thursday. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo made this remark after the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration, or the POEA, approved a resolution imposing a total deployment ban of all newly hired workers bound for Kuwait. Labor Secretary Sylvester Bello III, who also heads the POEA governing board, recommended the total deployment ban after Filipino worker Jeneline Padernal Villavende was killed by her employer. She also showed signs of sexual abuse. Panelo, also chief of Presidential Legal Counsel, said a total deployment ban will be indefinite until such time that the Kuwaiti government implements its provisions.
Until such time as the terms of the MOA are incorporated in each labor contract between the employer and the employee, the ban remains.
Citing Bello, Panelo said the Kuwaiti government has yet to honor the pact on the protection of Filipino workers in the Gulf state. Asked if there was a need to amend the existing pact, Panelo said what is needed is stricter implementation.
Kaya nga, yun nga ang kondisyon eh. Pag hindi nyo ginawa yung pinag-usapan natin dyan, tuloy-tuloy ang ban namin. Yung pagsunod, hindi naman yun sa pag-amend mo ng MOA, kundi sa pag-implement ng gobyerno nila. Hindi lang strict, we're asking them to implement it. Otherwise, the ban remains.
In May 2018, the Philippine and Kuwait governments signed an agreement that aims to put an end to inhumane treatment committed against the Filipino workers by their Kuwaiti employers. The agreement contains a contract of employment template where provisions particularly stated by the President are enumerated. These provisions include requiring workers' passports to be deposited to the Philippine Embassy and not confiscated by employers. Workers are given one day off every week. Workers are given 7 hours of sleep a day. Workers provided with decent meals and sleeping quarters. And workers provided with cell phones. Meanwhile, Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez on Friday welcomed the first phase of the trade deal between the United States and China, hoping that this would improve the global trade growth as well as Philippine exports for this year. And I quote, "Hopefully there will be a reforecast of improvement with this positive development between U.S. and China," said Lopez, noting the weaker global demand in the past 2 years due to the trade friction of Washington and Beijing. Lopez said although the Philippines is less affected compared to other countries, the U.S.-China trade war slowed down the country's electronics sector, accounted for 55% of the Philippine export. He said the Philippines has been resilient amid the trade friction of the world's largest economies, as exports to gross domestic product ratio of the country is only around 15%. He added that the Philippines also maintained a good relationship with the U.S. while boosting its trade with China. Meanwhile, Lopez said Manila and Washington continue to discuss a possible bilateral trade agreement. Both governments are undertaking technical discussions, he said. On Wednesday, Washington, D.C. time, U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese Vice Premier Liu He signed the first phase of a trade pact between the two countries, which include the commitment of Beijing to buy more U.S. products while Washington retracted additional tariffs on Chinese goods.
Narito po ang mga dapat ninyong abangan.
Ang Mia, it's a story about hope. So, talagang kwento siya ng pag-asa.
Showtime parang nagka-crush ka na ba sa kanya o siya sa'yo? Ay, hindi. Natatawa na kagad si Colleen kasi hindi nga daw. Bakit?
Hindi Kuya Billy siya eh.
So, medyo nailabas mo yung yung pagiging ikaw.
Kasi favorite ko talaga naman comment.
Lahat ng yan dito sa programang punong-puno ng pagmamahal. Moments.
Welcome back. The Department of Health or DOH confirmed 4 more polio cases in the Philippines, bringing the total number of polio cases to 16 since the outbreak was declared in September 2019. The Research Institute of Tropical Medicine or the RITM reported 2 additional polio cases from Maguindanao, both males, ages 2 and 3 years old. 1 polio case from Sultan Kudarat, a 2-year-old male, and 1 polio case from Quezon City, a 3-year-old male. They manifested with fever, diarrhea, muscle pain, asymmetric ascending paralysis, and weakness of extremities. DOH extended its Sabayang Patak Contra Polio or the SPKP campaign to ensure that no child is left unvaccinated and to boost protection for those already vaccinated. The succeeding rounds are scheduled on January 20 to February 2 in all regions of Mindanao and on January 27 to February 7 in the National Capital Region. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III said, quote, I urge all parents and caregivers of children under 5 years to take part in the coming SPKP campaign rounds scheduled in your respective areas, unquote. DOH and the local government units aim to accomplish 95% coverage in all identified areas for every SPKP round. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Judith Yamera, and I'm 1 with 25.